All right. Good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast. Good morning to those of you on the West Coast. I'm your host, Brandon Troy, host and co creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. Thanks so much for joining us. And if you saw the promo, you'll know that we have a great group of guests joining us. If you saw the background that I had there for the indie horror film known as Demigod. So give me one moment while I introduce each of our guests. First up, I'd like to welcome back a writer and director, Miles Doleac. Let me bring him on now. How you doing,
Hi,
Miles?
hi, Brandon. How are you? I'm doing very well.
Good, good. And of course, last but not least, I would like to also introduce one of the stars of Demigod, Elena Sanchez. So let me bring her on. Hey, how you doing?
Hi, good. How are you?
Very good, very good. All right, guys. So first and foremost, thanks for taking the time to talk about this film. Can you just start first? And I guess I'll put it to you first, Miles, of just talking about how this project came together.
Well, this is the same producing team we had for our last film, The Dinner Party. Myself, Lindsay Ann Williams, Wesley O'Mary, James Bullion. After that film, we very much wanted to find the opportunity to work together again. So we were looking for a project to sort of maintain the momentum we had generated with that film. And my co-writer on Dinner Party, Michael Donovan Horn, had the frame of the script for this film, The Demigod, sort of a wild hunt narrative set in Germany, which was very attractive to me. And he passed it along. We started working on it together. Made some changes to some story points. Added or made the hunter figure explicitly Cernunnos and embraced that mythology, which I thought was a big boost to the film at the suggestion of my incredible wife and creative partner, Lindsay Ann Williams. And once we got the script in a place where we thought we had a compelling story and we could actually shoot it, we started fundraising and looking toward making the film happen. And of course, we finally did in December of last year, 2020.
Awesome. And Elena, putting it over to you, can you talk about getting involved with this project? Because I understand with it, a lot it having to take place in Germany. That idea of having those origins, that background, being from Germany. Can you speak to that? Should I'm sure it was pretty cool and kind of surreal.
Yeah, so I had originally auditioned for a different role in this project of Mike Mayhall, who was the stunt coordinator and also an actor on the project, had reached out to me about auditioning. And then shortly before we started filming, I got offered this other role, and it was my first project. Ironically, even though I'm German, it was the first project I did where I got to play someone German and I got to speak German. So that was really exciting for me. I've been doing this for 10 years and I did maybe one German infomercial, years ago. So it was really exciting for me to get the opportunity to be involved in this. I was, very happy to get that call.
For sure, for sure. And I guess to speak further about it, just that idea, and Miles, I know you have that enjoyment and that background of history and really delving deep into the research necessary to tell a lot of those stories that you've done thus far. Can you speak to that and kind of thinking of like what components or what things you wanted to mishmash, so to speak, in terms of telling the story and some of the lore.
Yeah, for sure. And by the way, Elena Sanchez was a real MVP on this film. As she pointed out, she was initially cast in a smaller role. We had a harrowing experience with an actor testing positive for COVID before coming to set. We had to shake up the cast, and Elena was elevated into a larger role and became our dialect coach and many other things. So she was really an absolute gem to have on this project. So God bless Elena Sanchez. But anyway, Yeah, so Cernunnos is a fascinating look. Vegetation deities, nature deities, as a general rule, are absolutely fascinating. They are often the oldest deities, the most chthonic deities. They can be very, very vicious when crossed. Um, Cernunnos is sort of on the more benevolent side of the vegetation deity spectrum, but here we sort of melded Cernunnos with a little bit of the Roman underworld god Dispater and the Germanic Herne, who's a wild hunt god, and had Cernunnos embrace us a bit of a more sinister side, as he as he's holding down this charge of protecting the natural world, albeit in a quite twisted way. So playing with that mythology was really a lot of fun, and then just Germanic culture. I had some German from graduate school. I had studied at the Goethe Institute in Munich, and I had spent a summer there. And I loved the food. I loved the beer. Um, the language it feels like a kind of attack in a way, and it's the rhythms and the cadences of the language are so staccato and so visceral, and it's almost eerie. It seemed the perfect language for a horror film. And of course, the setting of the Black Forest with its infinite lore and creatures and legends. It was all so this it's just this wonderful sandbox to play in, and then having actors who could actually wield the German, like Elena, and with Elena's help and the help of our dialect coach Oliver Hoffer in New York, somehow we were able to pull it off. About 30% of the film is in German, and I knew that was going to be a logistical challenge, but we had a really game cast, and we had awesome people to steer the ship along the way in that regard.
Awesome. And Elena, in speaking to, the character, we've had so many, and I know it's not, lost on you. We have so many characters that are witches, throughout the genre, and trying to find ways to bring, different colors to, various tropes that we're, accustomed to seeing in certain genres. Could you speak to that as well? Because I mean, even in the film, there were a lot of colors, to your character in terms of uh, having existential, questions about, her existence and what her beliefs and her values are. So, could you speak to that in terms of, not just obviously being a mustache twirling, antagonist, but also having, more color in terms of other things that she is kind of like battling with.
Right. So that was one of the things that was interesting and also kind of challenging to me at the beginning, was reading the script and seeing this arc of this character. And right, when you're playing a witch, there's like a very stereotypical way to do that. But I think these characters in Demigod, these witches, each kind of have their own personality and their own soul, that they're not really the typical kind of witch you would see in a movie. And as far as Latara, which is the one I play, I kind of struggled with the idea of, she does really enjoy, well, obviously I can't give too much away, but like, she does in a way enjoy seeing other people's pain, but not in the way of for the pain itself, more because of the overarching kind
Fascination.
of, yeah, like the overarching, I guess, fascination and
The mission, really.
we're worshiping this god, and that's why I'm enjoying this, not for the pain itself. And once you do watch the movie, you'll see that her arc does have kind of a surprising twist, if I may say, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Good thing I have Miles here to tell me to stop talking. I'm trying to be vague, but give enough to make sense. It's hard to do.
I think Latara is really a fascinating character in that regard, because she is about the mission, and she is about their lord and his charge. But she does take pleasure in this ritual, this quite brutal ritual, while at the same time questioning her place in it and maybe its place in the wider world. So I think there's a lot going on with Latara, and she has probably the most interesting arc of the witch characters. And I won't say anything else. You'll have to watch the movie.
But that was perfectly said. That's why you're the writer and I'm just an actor.
For sure, for sure. And Elena, also considering the background that you have,
Brandon, if you're speaking, we can't hear you.
Okay, one moment.
I can hear you.
Oh, okay. So it might just be Miles. But no, I guess what I was saying, and I can hear you, man. But no, I guess what I was going to ask is, in terms of that background, Elena, that you have in I believe in ballet. Well, not ballet. I'm saying gymnastics. Excuse
Gymnastics.
me. In terms of that background and what that entails of really being in tune with your body and how that can shape a character and how that plays into a character. Can you speak to that too, in terms of having that understanding of the life lived, by your character, the long life to live by your character, and how that, can really shape, how they move around in their environment or in their world.
Right. So I think, yeah, every person, every soul, every being, has their own way of moving about the world. And as far as Latara, I always saw her as very graceful in a way. So the gymnastics, even when I was just walking, it came into play. Like I always walked or tried to walk. I don't know if I always succeeded, but like very gracefully, almost as if I'm just trying to, like, in a way, float through the forest, or different expressions with my hands or my arms. Like it was not quite a dance, but similar to a dance in a way, just the way you express your body. And you can also see that with the other witches. I mean, especially Fell, played by Sarah. Like her movement was incredible in the movie. I think some of it is in the trailer, so people might be familiar.
Yes, Sarah Fisher. By the way, Sarah Fisher has a circus background, and that physicality really came into play in the film, and I thought an absolutely beautiful and brilliant way. And Sarah has been a stilt walker and all these kinds of things, and I said, just embrace that background, that circus sideshow background, and she really did, and I thought brought so much to the character of Fell.
Definitely, and I'll bring a little levity, considering how heavy the subject matter is and what happens, what transpires in the film. I have to ask Miles. I don't think I've ever asked you this, in talking about your other films either. Maybe what's the deal, man? What's the deal with the cameos, let's say, that you have in your films and your characters, so to speak, in terms of they always seem to be like just like so slow. I don't know. Like I feel like in this one, without giving anything away, that there is some some redeemable qualities, but I feel like overall, like so many of them been so slimy.
Well, it's always more fun to play the villain. So if you're the person casting the movie and you have the ability to cast yourself in the villain role, why not? I do think that the character of Arthur has some redeeming qualities. At the end of the day, Arthur believes he's doing what he thinks is right to protect his daughter, and obviously he slips into a pretty morally gray area in doing so. But I think for him, his daughter Amalia is everything, and he's going to go to whatever lengths necessary to protect her. But Look, I think that I love I love I love to plumb the depths, and these flawed, complicated, slimy, if you want to call them, characters often have rich, fascinating psychologies, and it's just fun to play as an actor. I mean, that's why we do this at the end of the day, right? We're like kids on the playground, and the higher we can swing on the swing set, the better. So I think that's really what it boils down to.
Cool, cool. And speak further about that. In terms of many of the films that you've had. One thing that I feel like has been a connective tissue within all of them that's been fascinating to look at is the idea of like feminism and the female characters that you have. So could you speak to that also, and what you have a lot of times in what happens to close many of the stories that you tell, with having kind of subverting those expectations where you always have those protagonists where you have a male that is there at the end, and you in many of the films that you do, you kind of subvert a lot of those expectations that you would expect with final characters, so to speak.
Well, I mean, the fact of the matter is, the vast majority of the history of our industry has been dominated by men, straight white men at that. And they're up until very recently, there weren't enough quality roles for women. Even in films where women played major characters, the men still do most of the talking. And so in my films, I've sought to, in some way, close that gap and to help in some small way rectify that. I'm very impassioned about women's issues. I have a wife that's incredibly impassioned about women's issues, and so we, wherever you are, whatever industry you're in, hopefully you do something about the things that matter to you, and then that's really what it boils down to for me. So we have, in the last 3 films in particular, really the last 4, I thought they've all had strong female protagonists, and they're rich, fully realized, complicated women, and more than one, which I think is important. So it's a charge that I will hope to, as I feel like, I think Patrick Stewart said, who's been an advocate for women's rights and abuse victims, the problem is they only listen to you if you're a straight white male. So, I'm a straight white male, maybe I can do some good. Hopefully that's changing, but in the long and short of it is, I'd like to do what I can to help build more roles, and a bigger, broader, expansive landscape for female characters.
For sure, for sure. And Elena, to punt it over to you in terms of being able to have such a rich character like that as I said, is not commonly seen. I mean, thankfully these days we're starting to get a taste of that being a regular occurrence, but we are not there yet, clearly. So your thoughts?
I mean, absolutely. Like, that's why this was a dream come true. I got to play a role with an incredible arc, which that in itself is not something you get to do very often. Then I got to play different sides of the spectrum, keep it at that, of personality wise. And
Sure,
I got
yes.
to do my own stunts. So everything about this role was really a dream come true. So yeah, I mean, I feel incredibly lucky to have been able to play a character like that, not to mention in the middle of a pandemic when,
Yeah.
For sure.
So
For sure. And with that being said, guys, I want to thank you so much for hopping on and talking about Demigod. Before I let you guys go, can you tell folks where they can find each of you? And I guess whoever would like to go first, Elena, please go first.
I'm on pretty much all social media channels as the Elena Sanchez. That's THE Elena Sanchez. I guess I'm most active on Instagram probably, and also I have a YouTube channel. So that's where I am.
Cool. Miles?
I'm at Miles_Doleac, Doleac, on Instagram and Twitter, and Miles Doleac on Facebook.
Cool
And
beans,
do
cool
look,
beans.
do look for our
Yes.
film. It's October 15th is the release of our film. You can pre-order it on iTunes now. It will be in select theaters and on the major streaming platforms. So please do check it out. If you get a chance, watch it on the biggest screen you can. We shot it to be seen on the biggest screen possible, on anamorphic widescreen. And we really, really appreciate you, Brandon, for supporting independent filmmakers.
Absolutely, absolutely. So again, I want to thank two guests that I had on today, Elena and Miles. I'm your host, Brandon Troy, host and co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. You can find us on Twitter at Move and Shake UNLTD, on Instagram, Movers Shakers Unlimited, and of course, you can find me, Brandon Troy ENT on Twitter, and Brandon Troy _ENT on Instagram. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Be safe out there, and see you soon. Bye.
Thank you, Brandon. Good to see you, Miles.
Absolutely.
Good to see you, Elena.